Welcome to the cellar for another round of MTGA tasting notes. Today we've got a couple of wines to get into. A few fan favorites, one fan favorite I should say, that has come into the lineup in just the last couple of years, and something that is actually completely new and completely different, and that is where we're going to start, and that's going to be with our 2021 Pinot Gris. Now, we've been talking about this probably for the better part of a year and a half, maybe at this stage. And this goes all the way back to the 2020 vintage when we were talking about the impact of the fires and what wines we were able to make versus what wines we simply couldn't. And Riesling was one of those. Many of you have known us for our dry Riesling over the years, and unfortunately that vineyard was impacted very severely by the 2020 fires. So going into 2021, I kept in touch with the grower. They were in just full damage control mode, so we were looking for a new vineyard to utilize. And it is just frankly tough, and it always has been tough to find Riesling in especially the Napa area. Sonoma, it's a little bit more prevalent out towards Anderson Valley or even toward like Clarksburg and Sacramento area. But it had always kind of been a little bit of a chore. As much as I love making Riesling, it was like an every other year kind of thing because we simply couldn't find it, and vineyards were getting torn out, replanted to other varieties that were more popular, and it was just, I always felt like we were spinning our wheels a little bit. So with the opportunity to do something a little bit new and different and maybe play around with our white wine program a little bit more, we actually drove out to the Clarksburg area. This is just a little bit outside of Sacramento. These vineyards that we were looking at sit basically right along the Sacramento River. And it's an amazing spot, in my opinion, for white wines. The reds are great out there as well, but with these really rich sedimentary soils, this very beautiful influence that the river has, a tempering effect, keeping those vineyards a little bit cooler than you might expect since it's a little further inland and away from the coast. It's been a really fun learning experience, actually getting into that growing area and what it can do. So we settled on Pinot Gris largely because, as many of you know, it's my love of Alsatian white wines. And Riesling is, kind of forever the, king grape of Alsace. You also have Gewürztraminer, you have Pinot Gris out there amongst other things. And I figured, let's try and stay in that ballpark. We're not going to be doing Riesling anymore, but let's try and find a variety that is still in that same vein. Pinot Gris is something that for me personally, I've always enjoyed. Some of you may also know it by its alter ego, Pinot Grigio. That's simply the Italian version, same grape, but the Italian name versus Pinot Gris, the French name. And it's something that I've enjoyed drinking. It's great with food, it's great on its own. It tends to be kind of, for me, a little bit of a Swiss Army knife of a white wine. It can be very austere and intense. It can be a little bit on the sweeter side in some situations. You can, like many things, you can kind of play with it and really make it your own. And knowing that we wanted to make a really crisp, very dry, not sweet at all, light wine, we were like, all right, let's see what we can do with this, because we know kind of the ballpark of where we want to play. Now we just got to build a path to get there. So this wine, despite it being my first time working with this particular grape, it was kind of we kind of already knew what we wanted to do with it. It was still kind of the R&D project, but I knew the steps to take. Like, okay, we've been making this Riesling and this stuff for this long. I think we can pretty much line this up to knock it down. So what we did in making this wine is that we went direct to press. We squeezed the juice out of the grapes right away. All that juice went into either the stainless steel barrels that are sitting just over to my side here, or some of the oak barrels that are actually stacked up there as well. You might see the MTGA WW, that's our MTGA white wine barrel, or one of them, I should say. This ended up being an about 80% neutral French oak, so white wine barrels that have been used kind of over and over again, so they were just great storage containers and imparting just a hint of kind of body to the wine. And then the last 20% was going into those stainless steel barrels just to kind of retain the freshness and the fruit characteristics and keep a couple of lots really bright and really just, give it a nice pop. That's where it stayed. Those fermentations lasted a few weeks. After fermentation, we racked this wine off of the heavy lees. We didn't want to do any sur-lie aging. We didn't want to add too much creaminess to the wine, knowing that we were using some of these neutral oak barrels. That was going to kind of round it out just perfectly the way we wanted it to. So we avoided any sur-lie aging with this wine. And from basically the third week of August, when it was harvested in 2021, we got to the third week of February and bottled it. So it was 6 months, almost to the day, in making this particular wine. And it was something that was a big change. Probably the biggest change, that we typically had aged our Riesling a little bit longer. It was also almost entirely in stainless steel versus being in oak, so we kind of flipped the script on that. But it did wonders for this wine, and it is just something that's bright, it's fresh, it's something that you can easily crash bottles of by a pool or on the cruise that we were just on, whatever the case may be. I mean, this is something that, it's the white wine that we love to drink. It happens to be a Thursday of all things as I'm filming this. That means it's our bocce night, it's gonna be hot outside, and we need white wine to drink. Boom, there you go. This is the vibe of this wine. It's meant to be really light, easygoing, kind of no frills. Just keep it in the fridge in case of emergencies, kind of what I wanted. I think my favorite thing about it was I was a little skeptical to use even so much neutral oak, because I was worried about it kind of rounding out the wine a little bit too much. But the acidity on this wine is so bright and it's so fresh that it has this really, it adds this really nice body, but it still has that nice tanginess and that refreshing quality to it. It has, I wouldn't say necessarily like tropical kind of characteristics, but it goes towards like more of that, I think like apricot, like almost dried apricot. I think of like dried fruit kind of thing, without, being, too concentrated in that same way. But it also has that nice kind of zesty, like Meyer lemon kind of thing going on. That's really geeky, but those are kind of the characteristics that jump out at me. It has this nice kind of body to it, and that like apricot kind of flavor, and there's enough zestiness to it, and that like lemon kind of tone that keeps it really bright, really refreshing. And then when you have kind of this body of this wine that just kind of rounds out the palate, I really attribute that to the oak aging side of things and just allowing a little bit more oxidation on this wine, letting it kind of soften up a little bit so it's not so austere. One thing we didn't want to do, and this is very similar to the Rieslings we've made in the past, is we didn't want them to be so acidic and so tart that you needed food, or something to kind of cut through them. We wanted to make sure that, in true California fashion, that this wine is something that you can just pop open and dive right into. And it's just easy. It's just easy drink. It doesn't leave you hanging. It's full bodied. The flavors just kind of keep hanging around. I'm not gonna lie, as much as I've loved the Rieslings, especially the 2016 and 2019 vintages, this 2021 Pinot Gris is something else. It is arguably the best white wine, depending on who you ask, that I think that I've made. And something just very fun, very different, and very excited to have it in the lineup. So we ended up bottling just under 170 cases of this. So it was all of 7 barrels that we made, all said and done. And as I'm speaking, we were actually emailing with the vineyard today to start talking shop about when this fruit's going to start coming in for harvest. It was sitting at about 17 bricks as of this morning, so it's just a couple of short weeks away before these grapes come back in for the 2022 vintage. So very excited to share this wine with you all. This is something that would have gone out in the spring wine club shipment. If you happen to miss this wine, we do have it available on our website, mtgawines.com/shop. You can just go to the website, check it out. Or if you're heading our way to Napa anytime soon, this fall or into the winter months even, we can always make sure that we give you a taste of it as well. So thanks so much for tuning in. We're going to dive into the red blend next, so just stay tuned and this will roll right over that. Or feel free to check out any of the other videos that we have going on our YouTube page. Until next time though, cheers.